the 70th anniversary tonight of the Museum and Hall of Fame's creation. Welcome here for a big event. Beautiful evening. We complain about the weather a lot. That's hard to do tonight. We have a big agenda. We're going to try to keep on track. As we traditionally do, I'd like to take a moment to ask for a minute of silence. To remember trustees and friends of the Museum and Hall of Fame that have passed away in the last year. In this particular case, Dottie Houghton passed away, for anyone who doesn't know, April 1st. She served as a trustee of the Museum and Hall of Fame for 40 years and as secretary of the organization for the board for 26 years. Often referred to as the First Lady of Harness Racing, but also the matriarch of the Green Wave. Could we take a moment of silence in memory of Dottie Houghton, please? Thank you very much. I'd like to ask Sean Wiles to come to the stage, president of USHWA, to greet everyone on behalf of the harness riders, please. Enjoy the evening, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you, Larry. Good afternoon, and on behalf of myself and the entire United States Harness Riders Association, we welcome you to Harness Racing's hallowed ground, Goshen, New York, home of the Harness Racing Museum and Hall of Fame and Goshen Historic Track. Congratulations to all the award winners. This evening we have numerous award winners and speakers that deserve their time and their just due for rising to the level of excellence in their individual field for their career-defining moment at Goshen, so I will not linger long. Special thanks to this year's Hall of Fame dinner sponsors, Ed James, owner of the 2018 Horse of the Year McWicked, and the Burke Brigade for once again making it yet another evening to remember with foiled again. As president of the United States Harness Riders Association, I had the yearly honor to bestow the President's Award to an individual who has made unique contributions to the industry and the sport. My choice last year was John Vanel. John is a driving force behind the wildly popular Facebook page, Harness Racing History. Unfortunately, John was unable to attend the recent Dan Patch Awards in Florida this past winter, so at this time I would like John to come up and I would like to present him with the President's Award. John, please come up.
Good evening. Thank you for the warm words of welcome. The honor you bestow on me is a coveted one. For me, an unexpected and unsought surprise that is truly humbling. And while you see me standing here solo, so proud to be at this podium, I do not accept this award alone. Rather, I accept on behalf of the tens of thousands of individuals who populate our site, contributing to our sport on Facebook through Harness Racing History. For me, HRH is an ever-enabling labor of love stemming from a lifetime of joy for the sport. For all of us, an ever-present opportunity to share personal memories and memorabilia. HRH has become much more than I ever imagined. Magical moments happen on the site. Friends reunite. New friendships are formed every single day. Through digital technology, a global interchange creates rising interest in a sport some feel is declining. Site demographics, however, point to a growing volume of younger people. Engaging global and local communities, we nurture opportunities to come together. We share our interests and our problems, learn from each other through our posts. The goal, after all, is mutual enjoyment of the sport we love. However, I am not done yet. There are lessons to be learned from HRH. The site spreads mutual understanding of our sport's wonderful successes and sadly points to the work that needs to be addressed to save our sport in the future. Cohesiveness comes to mind. To set a fast-paced course for multilateral direction. To set on course to create a stable future for the sport all of us hold close to our hearts. On behalf of HRH members and myself, I thank you all and enjoy you to visit the site. And at the Meadowlands on Hamiltonian Day, where HRH will turn out in huge numbers, and hope each and every one of you will join us in the winner's circle. Thank you so much.
Next, I'd like to hand the mic over to Roger Houston. Roger?
Good evening and welcome to the night when we honor our sport's best and brightest. First, however, we give thanks for the gift of the people and the horses we honor tonight. We ask for guidance in being the best we can be and to do the right by our fellow competitors and the horses who do our will. God bless the men and women who serve our country. This evening, Post Time with Mike and Mike, presented by Bet America and the USTA, is broadcasting a special edition of the show live via Post Time website. You, by the way, can start eating your salad if you haven't already started. This year, we're again serving dinner family style. The waitstaff is available to provide additional servings, so please feel free to ask for more. To make the evening as seamless and transparent as possible, we ask that all photos be taken at the podium. Group shots can be taken in the Houghton Hall after the awards. Your cooperation would be appreciated. Scanning the crowd, I see that we have some notable guests tonight, and we ask that you please stand when we mention your name. USTA Executive Vice President Mike Tanner. We also extend a warm welcome to Goshen Historic Track officials who gave us a wonderful afternoon of racing. In fact, it is 4 great days of racing. So could all those officials of Goshen Historic Track please stand as well. Also, we'd like to recognize the trustees of the Harness Racing Museum and Hall of Fame. We ask that those trustee members please stand at this time. Museum Counsel George Cassell here tonight. George. And we'll hear from George a little later on this evening. You know, Hall of Fame Day is a little like an alumni reunion. and we're welcoming back several members of the Hall of Fame. Save your big clap for them at the very end. But as we call your name, if you'd please stand. Dr. Glenn Brown, John Campbell, Ebby Gary, Wally Hennessy, Charlie Keller, Mike LaChance, David Miller, Bill O'Donnell, Ryan Sears, and Ron Waples. Thank you all. Members of the Communicators Hall of Fame attending tonight are Murray Brown, Jerry Connors, Moria Fanning, Bob Hayden, Kathy Parker, Steve Wolf, and Leon Zimmerman. The restoration raffle will be drawn soon, so buy your tickets while there's still time. Proceeds help support the museum's efforts to keep the sport's spatial memories, its paintings, lithographs, and vehicles, jackets, and caps in perfect condition. The winners will be posted in the Houghton Hall at the end of the dinner. Hopefully, you all have had an opportunity to look over our silent auction, the items which are available tonight. They're just inside the Houghton Hall, and you're almost out of time to bid. There's a beautiful vintage weather vane with cast iron garden stand. The bidding now stands at $750 and closes when the dinner break ends. Now, if you're a baseball fan, there's something that is quite getting a lot of interest. It's a once-in-a-lifetime experience. 6 seats in the general manager's suite at Yankee Stadium. The tickets are for any mutually agreed upon date in the 2019 season and come with 1 parking pass. Food and drink in the box as well. The spatial package is donated by Brian Cashman, son of the late Harness Racing Hall of Famer John Cashman. Bidding at this time stands at $3,100. Well worth it. And closes when the dinner break ends. For those of you who might like to do some very early holiday shopping tonight, please stop by the Winner's Circle gift shop. Also a reminder that the Hamiltonian Party and Casino and Poker at Meadowlands Racetrack and Entertainment in East Rutherford, New Jersey, will be on Friday, August the 2nd. This popular event benefits the museum and the Standardbred Retirement Foundation. Tickets include an open bar, dinner, dessert, music, casino chips to play table games. For more information, please speak to John Mayo. The Harness Racing Museum has long enjoyed the support of the Monticello Goshen chapter of the U.S. Harness Riders Association, and this year is no exception. I understand that John Manzi is unable to attend tonight, and to my knowledge, that might be the first time ever that John Manzi's not been here. So who is going to represent the Monticello Goshen chapter for the presentation? Chris Tully. Larry Devan, you want to come up as well, and Janet Terhune.
Thank you, Roger. As Manzi would always say, you know, this is our Cooperstown, so we have to support it. And it's many of the, yes, applaud, please, applaud. The Monticello Goshen chapter has been holding banquets for the local horse people for 60 years, and we have raised over $100,000 for this iconic institution, and we continue to do so each and every year with the support of many of the people in this room and the organizations and the tracks and the breeders. We couldn't do it without you. So we are grateful for your continued support of our journal and for our banquet. So thank you very much, and here is a check for $4,000.
Also, Sean Wiles, representing the United States Harness Riders Association, you have a presentation as well. Sean Wiles.
Raise it to give it away.
Thank you.
Glad to keep doing it.
Thank you. Thank you, Sean. Thank you. You're out. Well, everyone else here has welcomed you tonight. My name is Janet Terhune. I'm the director of the Harness Racing Museum and Hall of Fame, and I, too, welcome you. This is a wonderful place to work. This class of Hall of Famers is all class, and I applaud all of you. It's a very exciting night to recognize so many deserving horses and horse people. Thank you to Ed James and SSG Gloves for his generous sponsorship of tonight's dinner. And we honor McQuicked, the 2018 Horse of the Year. Special thanks to the Burks for bringing Foiled again. And he was outside. I don't know if everybody got a picture with him, but it was a pretty special moment. I want to publicly express my immense gratitude to the entire staff of the museum for their efforts every single day, but especially every day leading up to this celebration. It wasn't easy, but the end result is impressive, with the most people we have ever squeezed under the tent for this ceremony. And finally, this glorious place that preserves the history of harness racing does not run on air. Please renew your membership if it has lapsed. And if you are not a member, please join tonight. There are applications on the table and applications in your bag if you prefer to take it home. Take your time and look around the museum. This is our history, your history, past and present, and it deserves your support. Please enjoy this evening.
One thing that I want to add, the United States Trotting Association has 16,000 members. How many members do you think the Harness Racing Museum has? 763. On behalf of the trustees, we would certainly appreciate it if you, the folks here in attendance tonight, are not members of the museum. Theoretically, this is your museum. It's your lifeblood. And $35 is not too much. So if you can join the museum, we'd certainly appreciate it. I know that you think you're having fun tonight, but you haven't really had fun until you participated in the Billings Amateur Series. Here now to tell us about the best of that bunch from last year is the museum's 2019 Amateur Driving Champion and Museum Trustee, Steve Oldford.
So a funny thing happened to me on the way to Goshen. Last Friday, I just happened to land in a Billings race at the Meadows. And who's calling the race? Roger Houston. And what happened in the race? I won it. There's nothing greater, I'll tell you what, than to have Roger Houston call a race and you make it to the winner's circle. Yesterday, I had the distinct honor of racing here, which I love to race, and at Goshen, even though it was in the mud. Once again, Roger Houston called the race, and once again, I was a winner. So I have a favor to ask of you, Roger. This next Friday, I'm racing at Scioto. Will you come along?
I do have the night off.
It's a pleasure to race. It's a pleasure to raise money for this great institution. And, as Roger pointed out, everybody in this room should be a member. So I encourage you, as Roger did, to sign up and do this. All of our CKG Billings earnings for commission for driving goes to the museum. We also have a Hall of Fame amateur trot series that runs 4 or 5 tracks, and all of that money also with the entry fees goes to support the museum. So I encourage everybody in here to please continue to support those causes. I want to thank the tracks that are our lifeblood, the race secretaries. Several of you are here that support the amateur racing movement, and in particular the CKG Billings, which all of the money from that goes to the museum. And lastly, I want to thank my trainers that got me here 6 times. Alan and Jody Cisco are here tonight. Wonderful, wonderful people with the horses that they brought forward. Terry Dieters in Ohio anchors that end of the stable, and Maurice Bucky Goldschmidt back home watching on TV. So I appreciate the honor and look forward to being back. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. This time I'd like to bring Larry DeVan back to the podium for the presentation of the Delvin and Mary Liv Miller Horse of the Year Perpetual Trophy. Larry DeVan.
Yeah, hello again. It's my great pleasure to announce Harness Horse of the Year, Mick Wicked. He was bred by Andre Farm from Puxatawney, Pennsylvania. World champion pacing horse. Foaled in March of 2011 at Hillsdale, Pennsylvania. Owned by the SSG stable. Mick Wicked is trained by Casey Coleman and driven by Brian Sears and David Miller. As a 7-year-old in 2018, Mick Wicked led the sport in earnings, winning 12 of 19 starts, hitting the board a total of 17 times. Victories included the Breeders' Crown Final, the Ben Franklin, William Houghton Memorial, Canadian Pacing Derby, TVG Open Championship, the Dan Rooney, and the Allridge Farm in 146 and 2, the second fastest race mile in history. Mick Wicked became the oldest pacer in history to be named the Dan Patch Horse of the Year. Also voted Dan Patch Pacer of the Year and Older Pacing Horse of the Year in Canada. O'Brien Horse of the Year and Older Pacing Horse of the Year. I'm very pleased to introduce Ed James, who happens to be tonight's dinner sponsor, and present him with the museum's Delvin and Mary Liv Miller Horse of the Year Perpetual Trophy. Ed? Thank you. Congratulations. Welcome. Maybe stand over here, get our picture taken. Maybe say a few words. Yeah, this is for you. Congratulations. Well done, and thank you again for underwriting the dinner.
While I have the opportunity, I'd like to ask a question about this industry. How come when a award's presented, it goes to the owner? What's the owner done? He done nothing. I'm not smart like other kids, so I have always used a pedigree matching individual. He tells me what horses to buy based on bloodlines. Then I take one of my trainers, say, go and check the horse. Then I take my other trainer, go and check the horse. Then I say, okay, to my trainer, buy it. It takes all the aggravation out of it, all the simplicity. And it's amazing in this industry how easy it is for a simple person to be successful. But I appreciate the prize. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
And now, for the main event, the induction of the class of 2018 of the Harness Racing Hall of Fame. For those presentations, here's Hollywood Bob Hayden.
It's time for the Living Horse Hall of Fame Broodmares. And let's start it with Graceful Touch. Graceful Touch was bred by Sweden's Peter Eriksson. She's a broodmare foaled on February 23, 2000. During her racing career in the first 7 years of her breeding career, she was owned by the Peretti Farms, currently owned by Steve Stewart, Black Creek Farm, and Maumee River Stable. Now, Graceful Touch has 11 registered foals with 6 starters, over $1.9 million in earnings, and her most successful offspring are the 2010 Hamiltonian winning Muscle Massive, the sire of Yonkers International $1 Million race Cruzado del Noche, and 2010 Mary Annabelle winner That's Not My Name. Son Muscle Mass is a sire of 2 sub-153-year-old world champions, 6-pack and plunge blue chip, the very first 2 to do it. Also, Southwind Serena, bred by Southwind Farm in Pennington, New Jersey, 2007. The Breeders' Crown winning Southwind Serena, 50-1 when she won it, was foaled on April 18, 2004, and during her racing career was owned by the Andrea Leah Racing Stable, currently owned by Steve Stewart, Black Creek Farm, and Andrea Lee Racing Stable. Southwind Serena has 6 registered foals, 4 starters, and over 3.1 in total million in total earnings. Her most successful offspring are 2014 2-year-old Trotting Filly of the Year and Breeders' Crown winning 3-year-old Trotting Filly of the Year, world champion and Hamiltonian favorite Mission Brief, as well as last year's Hamiltonian Heat winner and Breeders' Crown winning Tactical Landing. Steve and Cindy Stewart of Hunterdon Farm will accept the awards of both Graceful Touch and Southwind Serena. Come on up.
We would just like to thank the museum for this wonderful award for these 2 broodmares. As most people know, we don't stand any stallions, and so it means an awful lot for us to accept awards to our girls. And we're representing, along with ourselves, the Schmucker family of Black Creek Farm and the Schmucker family of Maumee River that own Graceful Touch with us, and George Lowenfeld, who also raced Southwind Serena. So thank you very much.
never forgotten. That is the legacy of the immortal members of the Hall of Fame. Their contributions to the sport are significant and will always be remembered. Bob Bonney, standing in for Joe Mendelson, chairman of the Immortals Committee of the Hall of Fame this evening, will introduce us to this year's class of Immortals and their representatives. Bob?
Okay, not so used to this. To this day, Dr. Leroy Coggins is internationally recognized for pioneering work in developing the sensitive diagnostic test for equine infectious anemia, known as EIA. The Coggins test became the official U.S. Department of Agriculture test in 1973 and is currently the gold standard as a serological diagnosis of EIA. Dr. Coggins' research significantly improved the practice of veterinary medicine and most likely saved the horse industry. Representing Dr. Coggins is Janet Terhune.
You stay here.
Oh, you're not going to say anything?
No, come over here.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Get you up here.
Oh, there we go.
Deuce.
Two cameras? I had some good EIA
Thank you,
stories
Deuce.
too.
I'm not gonna say it.
Okay. You set? A native of Xenia, Ohio, Charlie Hinkle was the announcer for the Little Brown Jug, the Hambletonian, and the Kentucky Futurity in the 1950s and 1960s, as well as for the Grand Circuit meets at Sedalia, Indianapolis, the Red Mile, Goshen, Springfield, and Delaware. He also called races at numerous county fairs in Ohio and was the regular announcer for extended parimutuel meets at Hazel Park, the Old Grandview Raceway in Cleveland, the Meadows, Hollywood Park, Los Alamitos, Cal Expo, Seminole, and Maywood. Hinkle's animated style of announcing served as inspiration for Communications Hall of Famer Roger Houston, who eventually served in two of the most prestigious positions Hinkle had held, as announcer at Delaware and at the Meadows Racetrack. Representing Charlie Hinkle is Roger Houston. Go ahead.
I just want to say one thing. A lot of people in this room probably do not realize what Charlie Hinkle meant to the sport of harness racing. He single-handedly got the Little Brown Jug and the Hambletonian on ABC and CBS radio. He did basketball for the University of Dayton Flyers and football as well. Duquesne University. He worked for Pat Boone as the announcer for the new team in Los Angeles in the ABA. Couldn't be any more fitting than Charlie be inducted into the Hall of Fame. Testing one. Testing.
Okay, let me know if it's not working.
It's all right. Don't touch it.
Okay. Okay. Allen and Connie Skolnick were active players and supporters in the harness racing industry for over 30 years. Is it okay? Okay, okay. Sole and percentage owners of many racehorses, the couple built their Southwind farms into one of the most beautiful and successful standardbred breeding facilities in the world. The Skolnicks achieved their lifelong goal of owning a Hambletonian winner when Muscle Hill set a stakes record of 150 and a fifth in the 2019 Hambletonian. Other important victories for the couple included a Breeders' Crown with their filly Juliet's Fate, World Trotting Derby with Chocolatier, North America Cup with Sports Writer, and 2 Breeders' Crowns with Chapter 7. Representing the Skolnicks is Barry Skolnick. Congratulations. You want to say anything?
Yes, on behalf of my family, my late parents, Connie and Allen Skolnick, who passed away in 13, not 03. We really do appreciate this honor. My father's dedication to this sport has been unwavering. He had a tremendous love and passion for it. And with the staff that I have now at Southwind Farms, Laura and Chris especially, they are continuing with my family's legacy, and we just thank you very much.
Okay, one more. Okay. World champion pacing mare Delinquent Account raced from 1989 to 1993, finishing on the board in 67 of 77 races and earning over $1 million. At 4, she won the Breeders' Crown and was named Dan Patch and O'Brien Older Pacing Mare of the Year. As a broodmare, her second foal by Arts Place proved to be her best, as Art Escape captured back-to-back Breeders' Crowns and moved on to sire 2004 Horse of the Year Rainbow Blue. Delinquent Account was the dam of Hall of Fame broodmare Artera, also by Arts Place, who produced Breeders' Crown winners If I Can Dream and Western Terror. Western Terror went on to sire the winners of more than $88 million. Representing Delinquent Account are Howie Acusco and Myron Bell. I think you're alone, Myron. I think you're alone. I didn't see him here all night.
First of all, George Siegel is not here. He had a family affair. He wishes everybody congratulations. Delinquent Account was purchased as a yearling for $35,000 with my late friend Alan Burke and partners. Alan has passed away, was a great man, loved horses. Brittany purchased Delinquent with George and the late Brian Monison, one of the sweetest guys ever. So we're very happy to race her and breed her, and we want to thank the original breeder, a la carte stable, and the drivers. Mike LaChance drove her a little, but Billy O'Donnell drove her and did a phenomenal job. Thank you very much.
There's a picture for the agents. There we are. No.
No, that's terrible.
No.
That's terrible.
I had to introduce them before.
Yeah, that's terrible.
At least your brothers are. At least your brothers are. I've enjoyed seeing them. All done? Thank you, Roger.
This time, I'd like to call to the podium for an introduction of a gentleman into the Harness Racing Hall of Fame. Billy O'Donnell, will you come forward, please?
Well, welcome everybody. And first of all, I'd like to congratulate all the honorees, inductees that are here this evening, and all their supporters. This guy that I'm going to present to tonight has been a friend for many, many years. I met him in New England back in around 1970, and in his bio you can read, just the accomplishments that he did, especially with the sight of one eye. And he was quite a guy, and anybody here that really knows Ted would relate to this story. I got one story I'd like to tell. He said one time he was racing a horse for John Copus at Yonkers, and the horse had just time trialed the week before on 154, and John was away, so he put Ted down to drive, and so anyway, she won, and he come back from wherever he was, John, and he comes back, and he said to his trainer, he said, the mare won, and he said, yeah. He said, how many changes did Ted make? He said, none. he was shocked. So anybody knows Ted, that he was meticulous about equipment. So he saw Ted in the paddock that night, and he said, Ted, he said, thanks for driving that mare. He said, she won. He said, she must have been geared all right, right? And he says, not really, John. He said, there were so many changes I wanted to make, I didn't have time. So anyway, if we could just bring up, I think Ted's son Ryan is here to accept. So Ryan, if you want to step up. And Ted, Jackie, you should be in the Hall of Fame also, by the way. Ryan, how are you, kid? Give that to your mother. She can wear that.
Want to take a picture?
Yeah, I think so.
Hold on. Teddy wants to come up. Yeah. Yes. Okay, great. Thank you.
You can't let me get one up on you.
Yeah, I'll give him a hand. He should be fine here. I'll give him a hand.
Here, let me over here.
Thank you, everybody. Oh. Check. Thank you, everybody, for that warm reception for my father. That was really incredible. And also thanks to Bill O'Donnell for bringing him up. My name's Ryan. I'm Ted's son. About 5 years ago, it was brought to my attention that my father was not in the Hall of Fame. And truthfully, I'd never given that much thought. Up until that time, he was still fairly active racing and not concerned much with collecting accolades. And my first thought about his omission was, who did he tick off? If you don't know Ted Wing, he's a notoriously difficult personality. I say that in the most loving way. He's always told you exactly how he sees things and offered to deliver that news without the sugarcoating that most would realize was necessary. If my father never received this Hall of Fame induction, and it actually was because of something that he had said or done, I would completely understand. And I think everyone that knows Ted would understand as well. We've all been on the receiving end at one time or another. Yes, we have. Yes. Regardless of how abrasive he can be, the last few years of his life have been filled with love and care from those throughout the harness racing community, up to and including this tremendous honor today. For as much grief as he may have delivered, it must have done something right for so many to not only have put up with it, but to stuck around here for him in 2019. The list of people who have shown him both patience and understanding, as well as bent over backwards to help, is long and unfathomable. We have lots of thanks, but I'll keep it short. The Harness Racing Hall of Fame and Museum, of course, for this honor. Some of our friends with us tonight, Charles Ginsberg, Mac McLaren, Steve Farrell, Tommy Lucento, and Mark Ford, for all your friendship and everything you've done for us over the years. The thank you portion of this speech was actually written by my mother. Without my knowledge, she wrote an entire speech for me to read tonight. And though well-intentioned, it was absolutely dreadful. So you can all thank me for sparing you having to hear her version tonight. She sent me notes on the people she wanted to acknowledge for what they had done for Ted over the years. Noticeably absent from that list was herself. Throughout his career, she's been the silent partner behind the scenes. Ted knows horses better than anyone, but that's about the full extent of what he knows. From paying bills, feeding him, clothing him, and raising his amazing, wonderful children, she handled it while he soared to tremendous heights professionally. And as his career wound down, she shifted from clerical work to cleaning stalls and assisting in any way that she could. She supported him through the hard times and takes incredible care of him every day. Caring for Ted Wing has never been easy, in sickness or in health. This Hall of Fame honor would not be possible without you. I was fortunate enough to find a typewritten copy of a speech he gave on the night he was inducted into the Maine Sports Hall of Fame. Though some of the references are a bit dated, the parallels between those two Hall of Fame honors are easy to connect 33 years later. So here now in his own words are Ted Wing's thoughts on being inducted into the Hall of Fame. When I heard of my induction, I was very surprised and pleased. To everyone responsible for my selection, my family and I are deeply grateful. My early teachers in the sport were instrumental to my success, and much of this honor is deserved for them along with myself. My father, Morris Wing, taught me the basics from the time I was 6 years old. He shelled out $600 of his hard-earned money in 1965 to buy me my first horse and my first winner at Skowhegan Fair. Other than teaching me the horse business, my father, Morris, and several other fine gentlemen from Maine taught me about integrity and honesty in all facets of horse racing. None of my success could have come without these people. Thank you again to the Hall of Fame and to harness racing in general for giving me all the opportunities that I've had. After concluding the thank you portion of his speech, my father finished that night with one last note. The reason we have a typewritten copy of that speech is because he actually skipped the ceremony and had someone accept the award on his behalf. He writes, "With deep regret, I cannot be there with you to accept this evening. I'm driving the morning line favorite, Wilco's Data, from post position 1 at the Battle of Brandywine. Gratefully yours, Ted Wing." I can assure everyone here today that if my father had an entry at any track in the world tonight, he would have skipped this too. From my entire family, thank you everyone for this great honor.
Next up, John Campbell for our next introduction. Testing.
Good evening. Ryan, that's a hard act to follow. It's certainly my pleasure to be here tonight, and congratulations to all of the new Hall of Famers, the communication corner, and all of the honorees here tonight. I've always admired people who get into our industry and achieve success without the benefit of family assistance or background in the horse industry. It is certainly more difficult and more daunting. Linda Toscano is one of these people. Earlier in her career, Linda worked for my brother Jim and I when we had a stable at Roosevelt Raceway. Linda had worked for Buddy Regan, who had one of the most successful and well-run outfits on the New York circuit. This is where she learned the bulk of her horsemanship, and more importantly, how a professional stable was run. She also worked for Hall of Famer Bud Gilmore for a while. So by the time she worked for Jim and I, it had got to the point that we were learning more from Linda than she was learning from us. As soon as she came into our barn, she was the best caretaker by far. And so naturally, she was entrusted with our best horse, To Ride Johnny. This horse suffered a horrific off-the-track accident that threatened his racing career. Linda not only nursed him back to health, back to the races, but back to his original form as a top-class performer at Yonker and Roosevelt. She had an innate love of horses, and that love of horses has carried her throughout her career and exists as strong as ever to this day. I know much has been written about Linda being the first female trainer to achieve a multitude of accomplishments in our industry. And she should be proud of that. And she should also be proud of setting a standard that young ladies in racing can look up to and aspire to. But the overwhelming fact of the matter is, she has a Hall of Fame body of work and credentials, regardless of gender. I mentioned her love of horses, and she always has the best interests of her horses at the forefront in any decision she makes. The decision to not race the overwhelming favorite Walner in the Hambletonian is just one example of this. But with Linda, that decision was not the exception. It's Linda's rule. She is a wonderfully loyal person, and if you check the roster of owners in Linda's barn, Linda's people have been owners and partners in her stable for years and years. She is a leader in her industry, a voice for trainers and horse people. She's a board member of the Hambletonian Society, a board member of the New Jersey SBOA. She is someone that everyone in harness racing looks up to and respects. Ladies and gentlemen, it is my privilege to introduce and welcome to the Hall of Fame, Linda Toscano.
Okay. See, that's why you don't let girls in, is what I just told John, because you need tissues. Thank you, John. We've come a long way since To Ride Johnny. You've been the ultimate role model, but more importantly, to me, you've been the ultimate mentor and friend. You didn't always tell me what I wanted to hear, but you always told me what I needed to hear. I appreciate that, and I've always been grateful for your willing ear and your sound advice. I also want to congratulate all of tonight's honorees, Joe, Blair, Ted, Mark, and Dave. You are all so deserving, and I'm so proud to share the stage with you. In particular, I'd like to congratulate Ted Wing, who also played a big part in my career getting started. Sending me horses to train at Roosevelt, you took a big chance trusting me. I'll always be grateful. I'd like to thank the harness riders, the Hall of Fame trustees, the selection committee, and all the people that had a hand in my receiving this honor. Never in a million years could I imagine that I'd be standing here. I started at Roosevelt Raceway. I got to watch and learn from some of the greats. My first boss, Buddy Regan, saw something in me and pushed me hard. I got to watch and work for Buddy Gilmore. I saw Billy Houghton, Jimmy Cruz, Buck Norris, Del Insco, Norm Duplass train and run their stables every day. I got to travel on the road with Stanley Dancer. Truth be told, if I didn't learn something, I wasn't paying attention. And Mike LaChance. Without Mike, I may not have had a career. He spent countless hours sharing his wisdom and teaching me things that I still use on a daily basis. When I first met Mike, I had a horse that was a touch on the ill-mannered side. Every week, Mike would fight him for 3/4 of the mile, and every week he would finish 5th or 6th. One night, in total frustration, he looked at me, as only Mike can, and said, "You're doing everything wrong." So, some changes were made, and as some changes were made, and of course, he won his next start. Flash forward about a year to the night Southtown was racing in the La Paloma final. It was by far the biggest race I'd ever been in. $150,000 purse. I was a nervous wreck. She was the first 2-year-old I had purchased and developed. I even owned a tiny piece of her. Anyhow, I check her up, and Mike says to me, "Now just remember, it's not important whether you win or lose this race. It's important that you got her here." I nodded. I thought about it for a second, and then I chased him back on the track and said, "But I really, really want to win." He laughed. She won, and I was on my way. In the last few years, future Hall of Famer Timmy T has put me in winner's circles that I could have only dreamed of getting to. Tim, I could never thank you enough. The Hambo is the brass ring, and you helped make it happen. When I was thinking about what I wanted to say up here tonight, I kept going back to the choices in life you make that have direct impacts on your life and happiness. I'm blessed in this department. The all-important choice is your partner. Brad, you deserve to be up here every bit as much as I do. You get up every day and work with me side by side. You have by far the lowest paying job with, without a doubt, the highest degree of difficulty. You get to deal with me 24/7. You also stay home and tend to the horses and the important stuff while I'm out chasing my dream. You are truly my partner in life and work. I love you, and I thank you for all you do. My family and friends have always been there for me. They've tolerated my many hours of work and my missing many, many important events. They've scheduled things on Sundays with hopes that I could make it, knowing full well that Saturday was out of the question, and Sunday, iffy. My niece even called me when planning her wedding to ask, "When exactly is that horse thing you'd go to in November? Because I really need you to come to my wedding." The horse thing was Harrisburg, so she planned it for the Saturday Harrisburg closed. After the sale, I made it. The next choice is your profession. Pick a job you love and you'll never work a day in your life. This is so true. Even on the bad days, I wouldn't trade it for anything. Once again, I'm so fortunate. I have incredibly loyal owners and a loyal staff without which whom I couldn't get the job done. It truly does take a village, and I thank all of you for your trust in me. I'm only as good as the horses I train, and you all make that happen. Okay, the last thing I want to do is address, for me, the elephant in the room, the girl thing. Girls and horses. Whether it's Shirley Jones teaching Pat Boone how to drive a horse in April Love, which is my personal favorite, or Velvet beating the boys on the pie, it's a no-brainer. We just go together. I was raised by a mom who said, if you want something, I should go for it. Simple. Just do it. That was her feeling long before Nike coined that phrase. It just never dawned on me to worry about the gender bias. That's why I always strove to be thought of as a good trainer rather than a great female trainer. Today, however, it's not lost on me what a great honor it is to be chosen as the first female trainer inducted. My dad would be so proud. I'm humbled, and I'm proud. I'd like to thank Marguerite for paving the way, and I hope I can play a small part as a role model for women who choose this as their profession. I was always fascinated by the Bea Farver stories. I would have loved to have seen her in action. Jackie and Gracia has always been an exemplary role model. I'm proud to work with my dear friend Paula Wellwood on a daily basis. Her horsemanship is only surpassed by her ability to instinctively know what a horse wants and needs to get to the winner's circle. And she always keeps the welfare of the horse first and foremost. There's Joanne, Casey, Julie, Hannah, Anna, and Annette. And if I can mention those names without needing their surnames, then they must be doing something right. You girls all rock. To you all, from me, dream big. I'm living proof that dreams can turn to reality. I may be the first in this category, but I can assure you I won't be the last. Thank you again. You have no idea how much this means to me.
flowers. This is Donna. It's so nice to meet. Donna Egan cannot be here tonight, but she sent flowers for Linda.
Don't do this to me.
I know. They're really from Jetlog.
Don't do this to me. That's beautiful. I'm gonna put it right on. Cool. Thanks, Dad.
Yep.
We have one more exciting opportunity. If you've been down to the races this weekend, you passed the beautiful new building being built. George Casale will explain an opportunity to name the Blacksmith shop. Now, George, you want to come forward? Where's George? George. And I don't mean Brennan.
Good evening, good evening. You heard everybody say what a great institution this is. Is my dead here? No. But think about if we didn't have it. We didn't have it. 2 years ago, this summer, we had a horrific fire in the Bosse's barn. Any better? It works now. We didn't lose a single horse. We had 2 minor injuries. We had a meeting after the fire to decide exactly what to do. The Goshen Historic Track rent stalls. It didn't make any sense to build stalls that we could no longer rent. The museum is looking for space to kind of expand its exhibits, to do restoration work. So we formed a committee and had a joint project to raise some money. The difficulty is that building a barn was going to cost us about $660,000. Turned out we were about $400,000 short. In November of this year, we started to try to collect funds. I'm happy to report, as of this evening, we have enough money to finish a project we started. It's going to cost us about $1 million. The difficulty is that we lost the blacksmith shop, and since the museum is now going to occupy the entire east portion of that Bosse's barn, we have no blacksmith shop. So we need to relocate the blacksmith shop to the Arden barn. We have a small grant, but we're significantly short of funds. So tonight, what we would like to do is auction off the opportunity to name the blacksmith shop for any family. Just want you to think for 1 second about that particular opportunity. That is everybody. Well, let me stop for a second. Just change subjects. I have 3 granddaughters. They have a paver on the Walk of Fame. My granddaughters visit about 5 or 6 times a year. Every visit, it's mandatory that they come and see that the names haven't changed or haven't been moved. And I think long after I'm gone and my wife is no longer with us, my grandkids and their kids are going to be coming to look at their names. So if you think about what an opportunity is to have your name over that blacksmith shop, and think about all the children who are going to see a blacksmith shot a horse. So basically tonight we're going to auction off immortality. So I hope I
touched your heart just a little bit. Now I'm going to ask Roger to come up and touch your pocketbook. Roger, watch my hand because I got two things in my pocket. So I'll tell you when you can.
We're not going to do it right now, though, George. No, not right now. We're going to do it during the dinner break.
Then you watch my hand.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll watch.
It's not going to be for me, but. Okay.
So enjoy your dinner, and we'll be back in about a half hour to 45 minutes for more of tonight's program. And by the way, we're 12 minutes ahead of schedule. $2,000, Russell Williams. Russell Williams, the winner of $18,000 for the naming of the Blacksmith shop, but we also thank Steve for the $5,000 for the naming of the stall. We're ready to get underway, and we call to the podium the Magic Man, Bill O'Donnell.
It was one of the best calls I took at that point in my life, for sure. It was computer. He had a trotter. He was by Green Speed. I forget his name now, but anyway, he was not a bad trotter. Oh, Camp David, yeah. So anyway, Jerry got them sold for, I think, $4 million or something, and went back to California. And then he landed back the next year with 8 or 10 or 12, and I was driving him. He was doing really, really well. But he had done well before that. He had Romeo Hanover, who was a Triple Crown winner. He had gone to California, come back, and within a year he had about 100 horses, and it really jump-started my career, I can tell you that, around this part of the world. And he's had great horses from the 60s right straight through to Glowing Report was around maybe 8 or 10 years ago, right? So 5, 6 decades. And Jerry was a great, he was a great manager, actually, for a stable. I mean, he had good help. The help all were, when you race a horse, if you asked them to change the head pole, they'd write it down to be done. There was no problems whatsoever. And he has a great eye for a colt. He's, I call him the family guy. He loves families. He buys horses that are in families 4, 5, 6, 7 years, but it seems to work for him. And it's my pleasure to introduce into the Hall of Fame is my friend Jerry Silverman.
Likes to stop off to tell you a little speech I had for you, and the probability that harness racing will be a success, as it always is. The right kind of people run it, the right kind of people own it, and you get this kind of wild testers. These people are enjoying it, having a good time, and they're thinking about how much success they've had in this game. Well, the night that Romeo was bought, I lived in the Henry Hudson Parkway in the Bronx, and I went down the elevator to get the car, and I heard the intercom for the houses. And what happened was, my wife rang down. She says, my water broke. I'll be coming right up. I said, whoa, whoa, whoa. Okay, so I'm ready to go up, and she says, no. She says, you've planned on this trip. You've been down to Harrisburg and Murray Brown's place. And now, she says, Dad, this is a gift. Romeo was a gift, and he really, really was. And I had a heck of a woman to say, leave me right here with the future. With the future. We'll leave it that way. And, but I got to tell you one thing, though. There's a few people that are special. In every business you have, there is somebody that's a special person. And I had caretakers, grooms, and everybody with those horses. And what was it? Romeo started the whole procedure and finished it, and was a great horse. And I wish everybody the best New Year's and everything, because I'm proud to be a member of this association. Thank you.
Which way, Rod?
Gary. Gary. Right there.
Bob Hayden for our next Living Horse Hall of Fame, be presented by Bob Hayden.
The next man we're about to introduce is a Delaware native, a constant presence over the last 4 decades, often at the highest level as a trainer. You know him as Mr. Joe Holloway. The first man he worked for is here, Jack Parker Jr., also worked for David Rovine. Can't get a better owner than Marty Granoff. He's here. Joe Hurley's in there, Mitch Skolnick. He also trained for George Steinbrenner. That's right, that George Steinbrenner. Joe Holloway's been overseas with the talented Florida Jewel. He's been the Yonkers Trot Dead Heat with McCluskey. First trainer to win over 100 Meadowlands races in a year back in '87 with 107. And within a 2-month period in the same year, he had a horse go past Presidential Ball and Western Hanover in a major stake with America's Pastime and safely kept. That's right, with both. Best known for 3-time Breeders' Crown winning Janice Beach Boy. He once went 1-2 in a Breeders' Crown with She's a Great Lady in Armbro Nest. But Joe has the most unique resume maybe of any horseman alive, because nobody else you know can make the following statements. Joe Holloway trained the fastest 2-year-old of the 20th century, Badlands Hanover. He trained the fastest 3-year-old of the 20th century, Janice Beach Boy. He trained the fastest 4-year-old of the 20th century, Janice Beach Boy, 47-3. And he's trained the fastest female racehorse ever, regardless of century. And oh, by the way, I didn't even mention Always Be Mickey's name, who spent 1.5 years in the Holloway barn. It's as simple as this. There ain't no stopping him now. Joe Holloway, welcome to the Hall of Fame.
Thank you. I'd like to thank all the writers and everybody that voted me in. I mean, it's truly an honor. I mean, it's not something you dream of as a 12-year-old kid down in Brandywine Raceway. I'd like to thank the people that supported me through all the years, my owners. A couple of them are here. I mean, Marty Granoff, Ted Gewertz. We've had a lot of fun, a lot of success, and I truly appreciate it. Without any trainer, without any great help, I wouldn't be here. But one of them's here, and that's Harold Kelly. I'd like to say thank you to Harold for all the years he helped me out. And then finally, I'd like to thank my family and friends, because without them and their support, none of this would have been possible. So thank you very much, and thank you.
Here, Joe. You got my script? Hold on. Hi, Roger. Also now, once again, we call Bob Hayden back to the stage for another presentation.
Thanks, Roger. Let's welcome now the Living Horse Hall of Fame, racehorses and stallions. And this is quite a lineup here coming up, these three. 1927 Yankees, beware. Here we go. Let's start with Art Major, bred by Brittany Farm, Versailles, Kentucky. Art Major was foaled on June 11, 1999, which means he had a 20th birthday 4 weeks ago. A lifetime record of 49 starts, 32 wins, 7 seconds, 2/3, and his primary driver and trainer were John Campbell and Bill Robinson, respectively. In 2002, the 3-year-old Art Major finished on the board in 25 of 31 starts with 20 wins. Victories included the Breeders' Crown, Hoosier Cup, Cane Pace, and his earnings of $1,562,000 were more than any other standardbred of that year, voted Dan Patch O'Brien 3-year-old Pacing Colt of the Year. The 4-year-old Art Major won 8 of 11 with 3 seconds back in 2003. The major victories included the Breeders' Crown, Canadian Pacing Derby, U.S. Pacing Championship, and he ranked 4th of all standardbreds in earnings with another $1 million season, $1,082,000. Art Major was voted Dan Patch O'Brien Older Pacer of the Year. As a stallion, Art Major is a sire of 22 in 149, has sired the winners of over $126 million with 9 millionaires, including world champion Art Official, winner of the 2000 Meadowlands Pace over Sunbeat Somewhere, Hoosier Cup, Cane Pace, 2014 North America Cup winning J.K. Endavanera, world champion Hypnotic Blue Chip, who lowered Jenna's mark, winner of the 2010 U.S. Pacing Championship and 2007 Breeders' Crown Governor's Cup winner Santana Blue Chip, and last year's Jug and Pace winner Courtly's Choice. As a Broodmare sire, Art Major sired the dams of winners over $39 million. Representing Brittany Farm, Myron Bell will receive the award for Art Major.
I better not touch the mic. I left something out before about delinquent account. I want to give recognition to Johnny Copus and Bob McIntosh to develop her and race her through her career. I'm accepting this award for Gene Regal, who picked out Perfect Profile, the dam of Art Major, and George Siegel, who owned him and sold the colt as a yearling, and Chris Ryder had him at 2, and Bill Robinson, and he was a great horse, great stallion, and we're happy to be part of him.
Thank you. Okay. Give it back up for next week, Captain again. Second on the list is none other than Captain Treacherous, bred by the White Birch Farm in Allentown, New Jersey. The 2-time Pacer of the Year, Captain Treacherous. He did it at 2 and 3, first since Niatros to do it at 2 and 3. Was foaled on February 17, 2010, had a lifetime race record of 23 wins, 33 starts, 5 seconds, 2/3. Driven by Tim Tetrick, trained by Tony Alagna. In 2012, the 2-year-old Captain Treacherous finished on the board in all 10 starts, winning 8, 3 of them in sub-150, earning $918,000. The leading money-winning 2-year-old standardbred of 2012, he was voted Dan Patch Pacer of the Year, and Dan Patch and O'Brien winning 2-year-old Pacing Colt of the Year as well. The 3-year-old Captain Treacherous earned over $2 million while winning 13 of 16 starts, including the Breeders' Crown, North America Cup, Meadowlands Pace, Hemp Memorial, Cane Pace, American National, Tattersalls Pace, and the Bluegrass. He was voted the 2013 Dan Patch Pacer of the Year and 3-year-old Pacing Colt of the Year. Captain Treacherous was the leading money-winning standardbred of 2013. Captain Treacherous retired as the 9th leading single-season money-winning pacer of all time. His sons are tearing it up on the racetrack this year, and Myron Bell and Tony Alagna will come on up and receive the awards for the great Captain Treacherous.
This all started many years ago with the late Joe Parisi. And Joe Parisi had a vision, and he bought a mare called World Order, and he bred her to Art's Place, and he had Worldly Beauty and her sister Worldly Treasure, who's the dam of Captain. And David Reed is here representing White Birch. We'd like to thank Joe and his late son Michael for doing a phenomenal job breeding, and their late farm manager Steve, who passed away this last year. But Tony Alagna gets all the credit. The moment we saw Captain Treacherous at White Birch Farm, we knew we were going to bid on him, and we were lucky enough to buy him because his pedigree and his manner and his whole stature was phenomenal, and he's never let us down. I let Roger down. We didn't race in the Little Brown Jug, but I'm going to make it up to him because he's going to have 3 of his offspring this year in the jug. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. David.
Foiled again, bred by Barbara Matthews in Chesterfield, New Jersey. World champion pacing gelding, foiled again, foaled on May 8, 2004 in Englishtown, New Jersey. Owned by Burke Racing Stable, Weaver, Buscemi, and JK Stable. Foiled against primary driver and trainer with Yannick Gingras and Ron Burke. Foiled against the leading money-winning standardbred of all time. In addition to his 109 victories, he's the only standardbred ever to have over $1 million in 3 consecutive years, and he did it at 7, 8, and 9, with average annual earnings of more than $587,000 over 13 years of racing. He finished on the board, get this, 225 out of 331 starts. The second leading money-winning standardbred of 2011, his earnings of $1,405,000 made him the top single-season money-winning pacing gelding of all time. He was voted Dan Patch Pacer of the Year, as well as Dan Patch and O'Brien Older Pacing Horse of the Year. The third leading money-winning pacer in 2012 with $1,207,000 in earnings, foiled again became the oldest pacer on record ever to have $1 million year, and was again voted Dan Patch Older Pacer of the Year. In 2013, the 9-year-old foiled again became the oldest horse ever to win a pacing Breeders' Crown. And in the Franklin elimination, foiled again set a world record 48 for all-age pacing geldings on a 5/8 mile track. With $1,404,984 in earnings, he was the third leading money-winning standardbred in 2013, recording his third consecutive $1 million season, and voted Dan Patch O'Brien Older Pacer of the Year. Since his retirement after 2018, his 14-year-old season, foiled again has traveled extensively as a popular ambassador for the sport of harness racing and receiving many visitors, just like he did today. How about a hand for Foiled Again from Mickey Burke and the Burke family? Got it?
On behalf of my family, Weaver, Buscemi, JJK, I want to thank everybody for this honor. I'm a you. This horse has done things. This horse has done things for us that you can't explain, and even the last 2 years, just traveling around with him and seeing the outburst of people that want to come and see this horse, it really gives you something to think about in what we do. And he's just an amazing animal to be around. Thank you.
I just want to announce something. I told Janet to do it, but I'm going to do it. Ronnie and Diane and Sylvia and I have each bought a a stall in the new barn for $5,000 apiece. Thank you.
Dad, you big feathers, Dad.
Oh.
No, Dad. All those flashes. Right, that way. No.
I just want to say that the Living Horse Hall of Fame committee rewrote the rules so that we could honor the horse, foiled again, this year instead of waiting until he's 20 years old. So thank you, Seth Rosenfeld and Bob Bonney, for spearheading that.
Our next presenter, Tom Charters.
You sure O'Donnell's not introducing this one either? Could I have your attention, please? Nothing you can say is more important than what Ted Gewertz has got to say, and I think it appreciates your attention. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate all the honorees, human and equine. I'd also like to congratulate Ushwa, although they came up with a pretty large slate. It's a deserving slate, and I think everybody'd agree it's a terrific bunch that have been here so far at the podium, and a couple to go. And I'm proud to be a trustee of the Hall of Fame and congratulate Janet and her staff for providing the hospitality of this event. It's something to look forward to every year, and appreciate it. I have the wonderful privilege of introducing Ted Gewertz, a good friend, colleague. Ted's story is not necessarily unique. He comes from that core of young people who fell in love with this sport, usually in the New York metropolitan area, some 6 decades ago. And he's had a pretty good run for 6 decades as a fan, as a player, as an owner. Which included 3 Hambletonian Winners' Circles, about 9 Breeders' Crown Winners' Circle, and an international trot, plus a whole host of other classic races that he's won, not to mention world champions. I'd like to regale you with stories or anecdotes of traveling with Ted and Claire, with my wife and I in Europe and around, because he's really a fan, but I'm not bore you with that. I just want to say that's not what got him to this wonderful shrine in harness racing, although it's certainly commendable and to be envied. In my opinion, it's Ted's generosity, his service to be on boards and be active on boards, providing both financial help as well as expertise. He's a lawyer by trade. He used to tell me when I was president of the Hambletonian Society that a pro bono lawyer is you get what you pay for. I never believed him. His attention to detail's amazing, and I appreciate all the help he gave me, the help he gives the Hall of Fame, the help he provides for John Campbell. Really an extraordinary guy. And as I said, it is my great pleasure to welcome him to the Hall of Fame here at Goshen, which he truly deserves.
I have to see. Well, okay, I've thanked Tom. I didn't think he'd go that long, but the other honorees cut their speeches short, so Janet, do I have any extra time? I won't use it, but as long as I have the license, it's okay. The thing about Tom is, though, and I won't regale you with our trip on in the train for sleeper car for two from Paris to Venice, that we had 4 in the sleeper car for 2, but it was uncomfortable, but we ate well for the food we bought at the train station in Paris. But that's only one of the many stories. But seriously speaking, I should be introducing Tom. Now, I don't understand. I always thought he was in the Hall of Fame. There's a guy, and his accomplishments, and he's been the ambassador of this sport for 20 years or more.
Get on with
and the world. No, I have to thank you. So thank you for the great introduction. Okay. Now, when I was first advised that I might be considered for the Living Hall of Fame, I was a little puzzled. After all, although the horses in which I owned won many of the big races, and looking at the list of Living Hall of Fame members, I didn't see very many people who were basically purely owners. Most of these people had, while they owned horses, they were in the industry in other capacities, such as primarily drivers, trainers, industry executives, officials, and the like. So, breeders. So, I asked myself, why me? So I had to, in preparing for tonight, I really had to give it thought. And when I had been notified of my election by Sean Wiles, I asked myself, okay, why? And I gave it a lot of thought. So at the end of my thinking, the best answer that I could come up with, which is a saying attributed to Woody Allen, quote, 80% of success is showing up. At least in my case, while we can quibble about the percentages, I have to agree with Mr. Allen. I showed up. But there's another comedian who's well known for his saying that I differ with, at least me and him. Rodney Dangerfield is known for his saying, I get no respect. Well, in my case, I got much more by this honor and my election. I've got a lot more respect than I think I deserve, and that's the way it goes. But I really could never have expected or anticipated this honor. So I'm grateful to all of you, especially the voters that made this possible. Now, I want to quickly give credit to all of the many people, trainers, drivers, and other owners to whom I own this award. My first great horse was Davidia Hanover. She was trained by Gary Lewis, originally from upstate New York and currently in Florida. She was driven by John Campbell, who needs no description, except I didn't know John very well. Only in the last few years, I've learned that John Campbell is approaching, no one could approach his ability as a driver, as an ambassador, but John is becoming at least as good as an executive, and that's saying quite a lot. Becoming as good an executive as he was a driver. Okay, from Sweden, my next great trainer was Per Eriksson, who trained the various horses named Giant something or other. And those included Giant Victory, Giant Force, Giant Chill, Giant Hit, and many others. From Norway, Trond Smedshammer gave us Windsong's Legacy, house that Ruth built in the same year, as well as Strong Yankee, Poster Pinup, and They Say Hanover. From Buffalo, New York, and now Goshen, Ray Schnitger, trainer and driver, Dewey Cheatham Howe, Huntsville, So Surreal, and many others. From Bear, Delaware, you've seen and heard him tonight, so I don't have to go into all the detail. Joe Holloway, my fellow inductee, who, at least for me, was responsible for the horse Modern Art, She Be Stinging, Somewhere Over the Rainbow, Better Be Steppin', Divine Caroline, Rainbow Room, and now Zero Tolerance. And I hope we do a little better with Starita. She showed some promise last night in winning her division of the Reynolds, and I hope she does well in the Oaks. In addition, for Joe, there was a horse called Driven to Win, who, besides earning close to $1 million, gave us a big thrill by going up to Prince Edward Island and winning in record time, the Gold Cup and Saucer, which I had always read about. And this is a great place and a great race, and you should be there. And by virtue of that, I really got to know the Hennessy's, including Hall of Famer Wally Hennessy, who raced there. So that was just a great experience. Everyone should get up there at least once because it's terrific. Okay, also from Delaware was George T. Jr., who all of you have known or have heard of. For us, he trained Fancy Philly, who was a great 2-year-old, and her 3-year-old season was cut short by injury. She was 2-year-old pacing Philly the year, and Custard the Dragon, another great horse. Thanks also to, and he's here tonight, Gates Brunet, originally from Canada, by way of California, and now from upstate New York, near Vernon. He's sitting at our table. His wife Debbie, who are dear friends of ours, who we also had a great time, a couple of times in traveling around Europe together. And Gates still holds it against me because he speaks French and I don't, and he knows how to drive around Paris, and he was mad at me. But that's okay. Terrific trainer, and he does his own shoeing. And he was actually introduced to us by the same Jack Parker Jr. who Joe Holloway mentioned. And I have to also give a shout out to Chuck Connor. Chuck here tonight? No, he was here for a horse called Sure Sign, a very nice mare for us. And finally, I do want to mention Chris Ryder for giving us Dawn of a New Day. It was a nice horse and won the Hoosier Cup and any other stake races. Now, I do have to mention just a few of the co-owners that I've been associated with over the years. First, there's Steve Robbins, who is no longer in the business, but was nice enough to come up here tonight and sitting at our table. And we owned the giant horses together, and we had a blast because we didn't care. We made a lot of money on the trotters. We lost a lot of money on our paces. But we had a great time outbidding people at the sales, and it was great while it lasted, Steve. But you can never count on a win. Okay. I have to also mention Marty Granoff, who's here tonight from the Val d'Or stable. Marty is the major owner of the horses trained by Joe Holloway, so I'm just glad to be associated with Marty. Terrific guy. He doesn't come to the track very often. He called me last night. It was Saturday night. He expected me to be in the winner's circle at the Meadowlands, and of course I was up here. So next time, Marty, you got to come to the race yourself. And then finally, Dewey Cheatham and Howe had a great ownership group. And while Dewey raced and while Dewey won, he won almost every race he raced in, the ownership group really had fun. Of course, there was Ray, and I have to mention my dear friend, departed from us a few years ago, Charlie Iannazzo, who also owned a number of great horses. And the other Dewey owners, Frank Baldessere, the Garys, Jerry Silver, Alan Levitt, and Steve Jones, who was the breeder. That concludes the owners. Now there are a few other gentlemen who deserve my special thanks. First, John Manzi, who all of you know or have heard of, or actually heard or saw. Unfortunately, John was the person who initiated this whole thing of me for the Hall of Fame. I said, why me? But John persisted and persisted, and he finally succeeded. And as you heard, John could not be here tonight. This is the first of these dinners he's missed. Unfortunately, he's recovering from an auto accident he had a couple of weeks ago. I first heard about this last night, and I did speak with John, and he seems to be recovering. Then the other gentleman who I have to give thanks to and my appreciation for is a person who is the paragon of this sport, the paragon of the museum, the paragon of the Hambletonian Society, Ebby Gary, who had in this, yes, he deserves that and more, because he had thanking him for the confidence he had in me when basically I was picked to be on the museum trustees some, I guess, 15 years ago now, and later the society, et cetera, et cetera. A great gentleman of the sport, and none better. Of course, lastly, the love of my life, Claire Chappelle, who most of you know, who besides running the business end of the sport has basically, thanks to her personality, has gotten me to know many of you and you me. So thanks again. Finally, let me say, this is a special place. I love Goshen. I've been coming up here since the early 60s. First, just as a fan, and I was able the unique thing was I was able to see the horses up close and personal. They were stabled, some of them were. The big stables were stabled right behind the grandstand. I was able to interact with the trainers and the drivers, and it was a unique thing, especially for me, you know, a kid from the South Bronx. What did I know? I didn't know anything about horses. I knew how to bet, but that was about it. The little did I know that, even begin to imagine, that I would later come to own almost 1,000 horses, become a museum trustee, a director, and of all things elected to the Hall of Fame. Now this is a great honor, and I welcome the fame that comes with it. But there is a well-known saying in Latin, tempus fugit, sic transit gloria, which means time flies, fame is fleeting. This is true for all of us. Nothing lasts forever. But if we want to keep our sport famous or even known for now and for future generations, and ensure that the horses and the people in that we admire are not forgotten, the best thing we can do is to continue to support this museum and increase that support going forward. At the very least, all of you can become museum members. The museum is the true guardian of the sport. It is the one institution that glues together all the various elements, and I'm not going to mention the various elements, you're all aware of it. In that way, if that support continues and increases, we will all continue to be famous for as long as possible. Thank you for all your patience, and good night.
Claire, you're wanted at the podium.
One more, Claire. There you go. One more step.
Give it to you now, you keep.
I'll put it in the drawer, yeah.
Case.
Off the stage. Off the stage.
Next up, Moria Fanning.
This one? Okay. You think Lather Up was fast. Watch me. Also, Blair, I want you to know you're given the 10-hole again in the order of things. So many Hall of Famers have a nickname: the White Knight, Catman, Jiggling Jesus, Magic Man. Blair Burgess will never have a nickname because his persona simply cannot be compressed into nickname status. His achievements in harness racing have not come with quantity, but with quality. The incredible performances, careers he's authored from a really small number of horses that came his way as a very young man is really unmatched in the history of the Hall of Fame. That his first horse was a gelded son of Romeo Hanover, and he still persisted in training, says something about his talent. There's fewer than a dozen horsemen in the living Hall of Fame in Canada and the US. Blair is one of them. In the last 20 years, only 2 trainers have won 2 Hambletonians. Blair is one of them. Only 8 trainers in the history of harness racing have won the trotting Triple Crown. Blair is one of them. We don't have to go through the names of the classic races he's won, the records he's set, the horses he's trained, though being the youngest trainer ever to win the Meadowlands Pace certainly stands out. But horses like Amity Chef, Frugal Gourmet, Pacers and Trotters, Hambletonian winners and jug winners, Tell All, Real Desire, Amigo Hall, Glide Master, says everything about his character, his integrity, and his devotion to the sport. All of these things afford him the sport's highest honor, the Hall of Fame. If you want to know the second highest honor, it's getting Blair to return your phone call. So we are both winners tonight. Blair?
You got a grade up here? After that introduction, I almost don't need to say much. It was very good. I did you a big favor and didn't get somebody else to throw away my speech. I threw it away myself. So I'm just going to go and say the requisite things. And the first is thank you very much. It's a tremendous honor to be part of this Hall of Americana. And congratulations to all my fellow inductees, all very deserving. As I go through, the first person I have to thank is my father. He dragged me to racetracks, or I was very willingly in tow, and that's where my obsession was born. And without him doing that, I probably wouldn't have even been in the horses. And his scouring of yearling catalogs over the years probably helped me find most of, or almost all of my really good horses. And I've got to say thanks to my mom. Gone 10 years now, so she can't enjoy this. But a Holocaust survivor from Terezin who came to North America and was really a city girl, but she put up with my father's and my horse obsession and was a really, really game about it, and probably was my biggest fan. I've also got to thank the help, the grooms, the trainers. I've had lots of good and lots of very bad, but they're very important. And I'm just going to mention 2 specifically. William Rapson worked for me for 30 years, believe it or not. Did a couple tours of duty to achieve those number of years, but he managed to do that, and he broke most of my colts, so I can't let him go not unmentioned. And a gentleman by the name of Jimmy Carmichael worked for Copus, and then came to work for me, and spent almost 20 years and did all the jobs nobody else wanted to do. And then I've got to thank the catch drivers, of course. And if you watched me drive today, you'll see why they were integral part of my success. I'll start with John, obviously. Drove both my Horse of the Years. And besides his great driving, the best part about having John drive is he had a trust in Karn and my horsemanship that would always boost our confidence and make us want to drive on. And I've got to thank Trot and Trevor Ritchie too, going in the Hall of Fame in Canada this year. And all his big success actually with me was with Pacers. So Meadowlands Pace, Frugal Metro with Road Machine. And then Mike Lachance is here. And stood on the fence when I was coming back from my elimination of the Hambo and said, you need a driver for the final. And I said, I think you're right. Do you want to drive him? And it was a good choice. He was an opportunist, and I made a good choice. So got my first Hamiltonian. And I won't get out of here if I don't say something about Jody Jameson, because he won't let me live it down. But he sucked up to me enough in the winter of 2007 that he got to drive on tell-all and got me my first jug and another horse of the year. Then I want to thank owners. I've had lots of good support, and I'm a terrible communicator and not a lot of callbacks, but most of them put up with me. And I'm not going to list them all, but I've got to especially thank Brittany Farms and their principals, George Siegel, Myron Bell, Art Zubrod, and Leah Chevry. They gave me the opportunity to train horses with better pedigree, and they taught me to appreciate good pedigrees. And without their connection, I wouldn't have even found horses like Real Desire and Glide Master. Really, George Siegel and Myron Bell have been mentors as much as clients. And then quickly I'll go on to my immediate family, my kids, Emma, who just got married, and I had to make a speech there about 2 weeks ago, so I have 2 nervous speeches in about 10 years is enough. And her brother Taylor and Linnea, they've worked on the farm, on the weekends, after school, before school, between high school diplomas and university degrees, and they're the worst paid gamist help you could find. And I have to mention them. They probably have a little twinge of hate for me, but hopefully they'll live it down as they get older. And then finally, of course, I have to mention Karn. And we're thanking, all horsemen are thanking spouses here tonight, because in the horse business, if you don't have a dedicated spouse, it just isn't going to work out. Or not for too many anyway. And she did all those things that a mother does. She had kids, raised 3 kids, cleaned the house, and then in the stable she did the bills, did the bookkeeping, and then did all the emotional labor that us guys think women don't have to do. And then on top of all that, she groomed my best horses. So thank you very much, Karn, and I love you. If you can put up with it, I'll tell one quick horse story, because Dave Briggs said I should do a horse story, if you can stand it this late. And some people may have heard the first half of it, but I'll tell a second half. It's a John Campbell story, so maybe you'll stick around for it. And you can't, it's hard to tell a bad John Campbell story, probably. But 1986, I had a horse called Amity Chef that was champion 2-year-old in Canada, fastest 2-year-old ever in Canada twice, with me driving him. But his 3-year-old season started off badly. And I had my head beaten in the Windy City pace. And I took him to the Terrapin at Old Free State. And was looking for a new driver, because I drove him in the Windy City, so anything was going to be an improvement. And put Ronnie Waples down, he picked another horse. Put Bill O'Donnell down, took another horse. So my third choice was John Campbell. And I think we went off like 7-1. John great instinctive drive, sat third over, swept the field down the backstretch, drew off by 8 or 10, set the track record. And so we're walking down we're all pumped up, walking down to the winner's circle. And John doesn't even drive the horse back to the winner's circle. He drives over to us, walking over to and at Free State, the paddock was down at the head of the stretch. And he drives the horse over there. And I said, what's going on? I thought we'd broken equipment or something. And John comes right up beside us, walks the horse along beside us and says, and this is 86, mind you. He says, Blair, you make sure you put me down on this horse wherever he is entered in to go. Oh, so now I'm really pumped. This is great. And so, of course, he went on. He was 3-year-old of the year, made $1 million. Fast forward 2001. I had a good 3-year-old by the name of Real Desire, or I thought was a good 3-year-old. Set the world record at 2, paced 50 when 50 still meant something. And coming back at 3, though, he was no good. got my head beaten in the North America Cup by Bettor's Delight, which in hindsight was no shame, I guess. And so I go to the Meadowlands for the qualifiers, and I say if he doesn't qualify good at in a qualifier, I'm not even going to enter the Meadowlands pace. So I'll put John down, maybe rekindle the fire. And the horse goes out, wins the qualifier, 50 and change, or 51, fastest qualifier ever at the Meadowlands. And at the time, I mean, it doesn't mean anything today. But, and so I said, this is great, we're all set, we're going to the Meadowlands pace, we got John Campbell. So just as John's leaving the qualifiers, I run up and catch up with him, and just wanted to talk equipment and make sure he was ready to go, and he liked the way he was rigged, because John always had good feedback. And so he says there's not much wrong, he just wanted one bridle change. And then just to double check things at the end, I said, I better ask. I said, John, so I'll put you down on the Meadowlands pace limbs. And John says, and I was crestfallen when he said it, I'll have to get back to you. So times changed in 15 years. I was dealing with a different John Campbell. But it was fine, it worked out. We won the Meadowlands pace with John Campbell, and he was Horse of the Year the following year. Thank you very much. Karn. Good. I like it. Thank you very much. I'm short, too tall. It's Thank you. Thanks a lot. John's got a different story.
Yeah, Blair's telling all these stories on me, right? Okay. And they're all true. I get that part. However, I know we want to leave, but this is kind of funny. So now we got Glide Master, and I start driving Glide Master, and I tell Blair, I said, we have to get Glide Master the way rigged and to race the way Real Desire was, a one run. That was his best race. Okay. So now Blair does that. He does a fantastic job with that. We're going to the Hamiltonian, and everything's going good. We got the eliminations, and this was when cell phones just came in. So I had qualified in the morning, and I call home. Paula says, Blair called. And I said, that's bad news. And she says, what do you mean? I said, Blair never calls with good news.
Now we move on to the Communicators Hall of Fame. We bring to the podium Rich Johnson.
Who is this guy, Roger? All right, I'm going to be very quick. First of all, congratulations to the new Hall of Fame members. In Mark Hall's almost 40 years at the USTA, he has covered all the biggest races, horses, and connections. He's only the third photographer at the USTA, and he's had big shoes to fill of his mentors George Smallsreed and Ed Keyes, now fellow Hall of Fame members. Mark is always helpful to help someone get a photo. He does it with that silly little sly smile of his. He'll help anyone do about anything, anytime. You may not know he's an accomplished Elvis impersonator, and you may not also know that he's a real prankster. One of the times at the USTA, he outlined the body in a chalk line, and then he also put caution tape outside the door. So when everybody left for the day, you can imagine the shrieks and shrills and how people felt as they went out. And that's typical Mark Hall. Mark is the ultimate family man. He's joined here tonight with his wife, Becky, his son, Jacob, and his daughter, Sarah, and his stepson, Josh. Also his brother, Marshall, and his wife, Barb. He also has a few grandkids. Not exactly sure, but I know it's a few. Everyone asks him, what's your favorite picture? And that is, well, I'll let him tell you that because I'm just the setup man. Anyway, I'm proud to introduce the newest member to the Communicator Hall of Fame, my friend and traveling buddy, Mr. Mark Hall.
Thank you. Thank you very much. You may be seated. I know we wanted to stretch. Thank you, Rich. And I too have a John Campbell story, but I'll save that for another day too. And Rich, thank you. As Rich said, he's our traveling buddy. We're also we also travel with our social media crew, Michael Carter and Wendy Ross, which makes up our traveling team. So I'd like to thank all my fellow Ushuans who, again, past nominated me and voted me in here. It's beyond a dream, and I think everybody that has spoken up here would say that. It's just beyond a dream. It's something you can't even imagine or even think about. So thank you for that, and thank you very much. I'd like to thank God for all of his blessings, of course, and thanks for him blessing us with a horse, which all we love and are blessed with. I'm especially honored to join my fellow co-workers here in the Hall of Fame, or in the Communicators Corner. First with Dean Hoffman, and Dean would always be encouraging and say, shoot something different. And then after Dean, the legendary George Smallsreed. And from George, we go to Ed Keyes, another mentor of mine, Carol Kramer, John Pavlok, Jerry Connors, David Carr, and even John Barry briefly. Working with them and knowing their thoughts and seeing their work habits and how it evolved into their passion was what I would say is just I don't know, just a wonderful experience to know that. I'd like to thank everyone associated with the USTA, from the directors to President Russell Williams, Mike Tanner of the USTA, COO T.C. Lane, and also our communications director, Dan Larry. I mentioned team earlier, and they're the leaders of our team here at USTA and Hoofbeats. And I played sports when I was younger, everything from Little League to junior high, high school, and college. And I was always on a team. And so I always consider my co-workers with the USTA and Hoofbeats teammates. And me accepting this award, I kind of feel like I just scored a touchdown or maybe hit a home run, but I wouldn't have done it without the team behind me. And so I think of them as I accept this. I'd like to start with my previous editors. I mentioned Hoffman, but also Nicole Kraft, TJ Burkett, and now Kim French, and the rest of our award-winning team at Hoofbeats, from art director Gina Gallagher, Heather Casons here, advertising director, Jason Turner, and Paul Ramlow. And now we have an intern, Alex. Alex is here, and he's helping us out for the summer too. So Alex, thank you, and look forward to seeing your work. Want to thank my family. Now, Rich mentioned my family, but she is the love of my life. Becky, and you'll see her later. I'll ask her to come up here for a picture later too. And joining me again with Joshua, Jacob, Sarah, my other two, Shannon and Jeffrey, are probably listening too. And my brother's here. And I first got introduced to racing with my brother. He had a farm, he had some horses, county fair horses, but I would always go over there and pet, and I'd always like to touch things ever since I was a little kid. So I'd always want to touch his horses and pet his horses. And that was my first experience with horses, then which led me to being hired in '82 at the USTA. And I'd like to thank all the other photographers out there. They are who inspire me, who keep me going. I see everything that comes into the USTA newsroom from them. Some are here tonight, I first remember meeting Deuce. Everybody knows the Deuce Man. Deuce is back here. He's been taking pictures for us tonight. And also, more of a challenge for me has been to writing. I just like taking pictures, but the other photographers you've seen up here, Chris Tully and Ken Weingardner, they can write and shoot. And I've always been envious of that. So, and then all the other photographers, but I'd like to mention their names, but Janet's shaking her head not to mention their names. So, but I will mention one. We lost one just a couple days ago, John Pantalone. And everybody should remember John, but he died, he started in 1972, and he just died a couple weeks ago. Worldwide Racing, you should remember him. And he's the first one that he shot black and white. He was the first one that converted and started doing wind circle pictures in color. So please remember John, his family, in your prayers during this time. There's one thing I see in all of you people. I remember seeing the Hall of Fame induction for football, and I just happened to be watching, and it was that of Howie Long, former All-Pro defensive end or tackle for the Los Angeles Raiders. And when he was giving his Hall of Fame, and the only thing I remember about it was he said, baseball may be America's pastime, but football is America's passion. And I thought that was pretty profound. So I quickly kind of thought about it a little bit more and thought, well, maybe thoroughbred racing is America's pastime and harness racing is America's passion. But the more I thought about that, seeing the love of the sport, I've never seen anything like it. Working a factory job where I was going to school, people go to work, go home, and think nothing about work. You people live your work. Us, we all live harness racing. The county fairs, you work the full-time job, you take horses to the county fair, the race, you know what it's all about. I don't need to tell you about it. So then I thought a little bit more. I'm thinking harness racing is America's pastime, and it is its passion. And it's my passion too. And I spoke as a kid. I would always touch things, touch my brother's horse. And I may not have touched enough horses as an ID tech or maybe a farm manager, but I started looking at all the horses in a journal as far as the horses of the year and the horses here in the Hall of Fame. And I go back, and first great horse I remember seeing was 1980 Nitros at the Little Brown Jug. And I remember touching him. But every winter circle after that, I would touch horses, or whether I'm out at the farms taking pictures of the stallions or of the mares or the babies, I would touch them. And I started looking at every horse from Nitros, and I touched every one of them, whether it be a pat on the back or just a pat on the rump, like a congratulatory pat. I'm going, wow. And then I looked at the list of all the Hall of Fame inductees, all the people in the Hall of Fame. And I'm thinking, wow, I know most of those people and either have spoken to them or shaken their hands. And then it becomes a little bit overwhelming, and having the privilege of and the honor of meeting all those people. And at the end of the day, I look back and I realized it wasn't me touching the people, it was them who touched me. And it wasn't me who touched the horses. It was the horses who touched me, and that's my passion. That's it. Thank you. Oh, wait a second. Becky, could you come up here? Everybody, me and wife, Becky. I'd like to get her in the picture. If it wasn't for her watching the kids at home and understanding the traveling that we do on and off. Oh, and while she's coming up here, I do have kind of a listening to Blair, it's kind of a dirty story, but I won't tell you about all the stories because you can read them in Hoofbeats or read them in a journal, but there's one shot in there of a little foal behind, with a setting sun in the background. And I was out there at the farm, And I quickly saw them coming, and I knew they would be coming across the head to the shed. And I'm thinking, oh, so I lay down in the grass real quick. And sure enough, here they come, and I made this, and the little foal stopped and looked at me. And I took the picture, and that's one of the pictures you'll see in Hoofbeats, that little foal. Well, it was so breathtaking. Anyway, I got up, and I didn't realize where I laid down. And so that's my dirty part, and I had to wash my clothes afterwards. So you'll appreciate that picture more knowing what I went through to get there. Thank you.
To introduce our next Communicator Hall of Famer, bring to the podium the one and only John Barry.
Well, I just want you all to know that I'm all lathered up for this, and my speech is only going to be about 1 minute and 46 seconds flat. So there you go.
Go!
Well, it does my heart good to be in Goshen this night. I wasn't at all sure if I was really going to be able to do this, but the mere invitation from Dave Little to give his introduction to the Communicators Hall of Fame was more than enough of an impetus to get here tonight, and I sure am glad to be with all of you. It was back 55 years ago when my first writings appeared in the Horseman and Fair World, and that's when Pompano Park opened in February of 1964. And since then, I've witnessed countless highlights going back to the days of Sumac Lad in the 50s and 60s, and this very moment. And this very moment with Dave Little equals one of the great highlights in my career, I will tell you that. It's not about the grand things I myself have to say about Dave. It's about the opportunity to tell you what one of the true icons of the sports world thought about Dave. My words aren't good enough, I will tell you that. But a gentleman who's no longer in our world, and his name is Murray Janoff. Murray passed away a few years ago at the age of 100, and before he passed, I had the privilege of visiting him near the end of his grand life as a Hall of Fame journalist, not just in harness racing, as a charter member of USHWA, but as a gentleman who covered pro football, college and pro basketball, baseball, track and field, tennis, baseball for the Associated Press, United Press International, Reuters, Long Island Press, during 7 decades of service to the sports world. And when Murray Janoff said something, everyone paid attention. So the praise for Dave, while it comes from my vocal cords, it means so much more when the author of these thoughts comes from Murray Janoff. And he said they don't have to be deep, they just have to hit the point. So Murray said, after I'm gone, I hope the Hall of Fames welcome a guy like Dave Little into that great hall. He says, here's a gentleman whose knowledge is never ending, his dedication is unwavering, his agility is like a rainbow encompassing every hue of harness racing. He said, that's really all you have to say about Dave Little, because he'll tell you the rest, and there's a lot of stuff in your great journal. So it's with these words that we welcome Dave Little to the stage for his introduction and induction to the Communicators Hall of Fame. And I'd like Gabe Pruitt to come up here, please. Gabe, can you step up here as well? Where's the man, Gabe Pruitt? Gabe and Dave are partners at the Meadowlands. Gabe and I are partners at Pompano Park. And we have noticed that this gentleman is one of the outstanding handicappers in harness racing history. So tonight, as just a little extra something, as what we would like to bestow this PhD, this professional harness racing degree, to Dave Little. He is now the Doctor of Harness Racing Handicapping. So Dave, we are presenting you this PhD. The stage is all yours, my friend. It's an honor to have you as a friend and as a just as a harness racing's happy to have him right alongside. Gabe, thank you for being with us. Dave, it's all yours. Thank you.
They say you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. But I know that's not true, because I chose harness racing, so I did choose my family. For example, the gentleman who introduced me. I've been close to John Berry and his wonderful wife, Abby, for longer than I can remember. I don't totally know how we met, but I do know that I'm so proud to call them family, even when John plays his kazoo. That doesn't mean you can play it now, John. I do remember meeting Bruce and Linda Grider. It was my first trip to Du Quoin, and the Griders were campaigning world champion Mini-Me. Less than 2 weeks later, we got a call from them. They wanted to make sure Debbie and I were okay after planes struck the Twin Towers. And now, 18 years later, they flew in from Illinois to surprise me with a Hall of Fame paver for my induction. That's what family does. I met Leah Eustachowicz when she was a 19-year-old college student attending the Clyde Hurt Journalism Workshop. She calls my wife Debbie and I her harness racing parents. She even put it on a brick in front of the museum. I was honored to preside at her wedding to her now husband, Stephen Jeremiah. I've even offered to babysit her son, Tommy. Thankfully, she's never taken me up on that one. Adam Berkowitz started out at the Daily News as my assistant racing clerk. He worked his way through the ranks and ended his career as a senior managing editor. I like to think that I had a lot to do with his success, whether he agrees or not. I'm so happy that Troy Dombrowski and his girlfriend Jeanette Seeley could be here tonight. I met Troy in 1974. We were 12 years old, and he's always been there for me. Well, except for that time when I broke my leg. But it's okay, Louie. My limp is barely noticeable now. I couldn't have asked for a better best friend than Dave Lazar. He is the Spock to my Kirk. And for the millennials, the Sheldon to my Leonard. Wait a minute. This is harness racing. There aren't any millennials in this room. I also have to thank his wife, Lynn, who puts up with the constant talk and texts about the track, the Mets, and our yearly trip to Las Vegas. You know that you've always been more than merely my best friend's wife. I have 3 terrific nephews, Jeff, Johnny, and Kenny, all of which have actually been to the track and seen harness racing live. In fact, Jeff made his first bet when he was 9 years old, and he won $100. Even at that age, he was smart enough to bet my picks. My sister Christina is the nicest, sweetest, kindest person you could ever meet. You know how you ask people to help you move and they say, yeah, sure, sure, and then they never show up? Not only does my sister show up, but then she'll help you unpack. She'll make you dinner and then do the dishes. And I love her very much. My brother Kevin couldn't be here tonight because he had to work. He's one of New Jersey's finest. And there's no one I'd want in the foxhole with him more than me. Growing up, I learned a lot from my brothers Craig and Mark. They loved the Yankees, and thus are responsible for my love of the Mets. They taught me to never be late for a meal or there wouldn't be anything left. Maybe I learned that one just a little bit too well. My sister and brothers are Hall of Famers to me, and I'm proud to be their brother. Next, the spotlight shifts to my mom, where it should always be. Anyone who knows me has heard me tell stories using the phrase, "my poor mother." Any of you who knew me and my brothers growing up understand what I'm talking about. Most kids dream about turning 18 and moving out. When I turned 18, my mom moved out. But she's always been my champion, proud of me no matter what I do, and I will always be her baby boy. Thank you, Mom. I love you. I'd also like to thank my Meadowlands family, Jeff Gorell and Jason Settlemore, for hiring me to a job that I consider my second dream job in my life. Very lucky. All the guys in TV, Oz Cologne, my partner Dave Brower, Hollywood Hayden, Ken Warkentin, Jessica Otten, and of course, Gabe Pruitt. My historic track family, Steve Jones, Linda Myers, Tim Masters, and everyone I work with on the judges stand, and my Orleans County Fair family, Kim Brooks, George Hickman, George Churchill, Lori Royer, and Frankie Vezina. Last, I'd like to thank my wife. How lucky can one guy get? I show up at Yonkers in April of 1988 to do a radio show, and I see this girl there, and boom, it's love at first sight for me. Only problem was she had a boyfriend of 3 years. But we put him aside a short time later. Debbie and I will be married 30 years in September. You can applaud that. And the last 30 years have been a nonstop adventure, being spent with the love of my life, who I'm lucky enough to have love me. When you consider all that, and on top of it all, I married a girl who's a harness racing journalist. Like I said, how lucky can one guy get? Finally, a harness handicapper spends his life choosing the horses. And to paraphrase the great author and mediocre pitcher, Jim Bouton, I spend my life choosing the horses, but in the end, it turns out it was the other way around all the time. Congratulations to all of tonight's honorees, and thank you very much.
She's got my PhD.
Okay, just one. Josh, thanks so much. See you well, my friend.
Amy.
I want to thank you for all coming tonight. The results of the raffle can be found in the Houghton Hall. You stop by the gift shop on your way out. And mark on the calendar, Sunday, July the 5th, next year, be here. And it's 9:40, 9:40. Not quite a world's record, but for 7 inductees, it sure was.